In the very, very earliest stages, it gives rise, wherever that occurs in the world, to an individual with a very unusual profile.
And I didn't even get a chance, boys and girls. I have other pictures too on my presentation of other individuals with Williams syndrome too, but you'll see some of them look a lot like Evan, some of them look a little bit like Evan, but they all kind of look like brothers and sisters.
Definition of what Williams syndrome is.
Okay. Williams syndrome is a birth defect that I was born with.
Most people with Williams syndrome love interaction, they love engagement, they love to catch your eye and get a smile, and I almost feel like that's candy for them. It's like, oh good, I caught another smile, or like someone fishing, I caught one, it felt so good.
If I ever get a chance to actually go on a real recording studio with a big bass fiddle, believe me, I'll call you so I can record with you.
I work at.
Ooh, I think you're good at that.
I am. I always take people to their tables and I make everybody happy. I heard nice compliments. The bosses are very happy and I make everybody happy. I'm a happy man for the rest of my life.
Williams people are very musical. They love music, they love arts, they love dancing, so that's a very cool thing about Williams syndrome.
I think there is something special about Williams syndrome and music in a couple of ways. I mean, so many people with Williams syndrome have intense emotional responses to music, intensely happy. So I just think a lot of people with Williams syndrome feel music more emotionally.
Tell me about your love for music.
Oh, music to me is like the soundtrack of the world.
What do you say about the challenges of Williams syndrome? How would you characterize those?
Well, there are different challenges. When you get to see someone who has Williams syndrome, you know, it's like a whole different world.
Now you do it, man. Stay on the road. Oh, we went off the road a little bit. Let's try it one more time. We're going to take it.
Students with Williams syndrome have a difficulty focusing. They are known in general to have poor focusing ability. It's compounded by an inability to filter out other students in the room who may be working on a different project, and because of their hypersensitive hearing, they can often even hear things going on in the hallway or in the classroom next door, and those all become distractions.
When you test a child with Williams syndrome, you might get an overall IQ that's in the high 50s or low 60s, but verbal abilities and nonverbal reasoning ability 80s. So a huge discrepancy. It means the overall IQ is not a valid indicator of the child's abilities.
It's hard because you are so beautiful, but you have so many health problems that you can't take care of, or it's hard to handle.
There's a considerable range of medical problems in individuals with Williams syndrome. Some folks have relatively few medical problems, whereas others have the potential for significant involvement in many organ systems. The most prominent area of medical problems that affect people's lives are the cardiovascular, or is the cardiovascular area.
This will be over.
Ben has severisis, which is the classic Williams syndrome marker, which is a very distinct narrowing just above the valve. For Benjamin, he has, basically multiple narrowings throughout his vascular system. The first surgery was at 6 weeks. The total blockages have happened slowly, over a long period of time, and his body has just made adjustments along the way. We had flow studies done, and they basically just shook their head and said, okay, well, it works. If he has a problem, call us. If not, don't. But he's kind of a mystery man, you know, in that regard.
You like pretty girls?
Let's see about that question. Sure, that's all I say about that.
Johnny Depp, he's cute. Oh, I have a crush on him. I can't help it.
I like Pamela Anderson.
We were just talking to each other and kind of started knowing more about each other, and we just kind of bonded very easily.
I think we might like to adopt children.
I think it's a blessing for us to be able to eventually provide for a child who would otherwise not have a lot.
When you found out she had Williams syndrome, what was that day? When was that?
We found out in September of '09 when she was about 9 months old, and it's very heartbreaking first, but it's kind of like you just have to take it one day at a time, and of course you can see she's a beautiful baby and we love her with everything, so.
No one ever planned to be the parent of a child with a disability. And so then the question is, you have this kid and you love this kid, what do you do? And I think, you know, in the work that I do, the question isn't how do you fix it as much as how do you live with a child with a disability in a way that's good for you and good for the child and good for your family. And so much of that isn't, you know, it isn't like some big idealistic thing. It's about the moment-to-moment interactions that you have with your child. Count the blessings first, and then we'll figure out how to do something with the challenges. There are endless blessings to a child that has Williams syndrome that's so full of life and so happy that you don't think about that's a child with a disability. You think, wow, what a cool kid. You know, what a really cool kid.
Okay. And how do you get past like being like very disappointed he had that?
That is such a good, that's a really good question, and I appreciate you asking it because that's a hard one for people to talk about. It was really, really hard when I first found out, like super duper hard, because when you have a baby, you're imagining what they're gonna look like when they're an adult, and you're imagining them going to college and driving a car and doing all these really amazing things that you guys were all going to do. You know, and the doctor told us he might not go to college, he might not drive a car. He might, but he also might not. And it was hard, it was really, really hard. But I will say that Evan is Evan first, and then he has Williams syndrome. So I don't know if you guys understand what I mean by that, but we try not to let it be who he is first. So even though I do love talking about it because it makes him who he is too. Like it makes him the cool kid that he is. I actually, and I've said this a lot of times and people don't always believe me, I wouldn't wish him to not have it. Even though it's something that makes it really hard for him, I want him to be who he is, and he wouldn't be who he is if he didn't have it. So, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Dante?
So I learned something I never learned when I just found out that like all like syndromes, when you get that, I thought like when it's birth, but I realized that the doctors actually diagnose you with it.
Right, right. It depends. Some babies, when they're born, the doctor knows right away, especially if they have a major, major heart problem. And we're super lucky that Evan actually doesn't have those cardiovascular issues that Terry was talking about her son Ben, who had surgery at 6 weeks old. I have lots of friends, though, within the Williams syndrome community that have children who have had multiple heart surgeries and will continue to have multiple heart surgeries. And that's why research is so important. But we are lucky that Evan doesn't have those issues. Ava.
So children with Williams syndrome have distinct blue eyes. Why is that?
Some of them do. I would say maybe the majority of them do, but some of them also have brown, and they have this, there's a special name for it, and it escapes me, but there's a special starburst pattern that they have too. And if we have a couple close-ups of Evan's eyes, and it looks like a firework that's going off in the middle of his eye. I actually can't answer that question. If you look it up on my blend space that I shared, there's a blog that's written by a biology teacher who happens to have a child with Williams syndrome, and she writes all about the starburst pattern and why they think it might happen. But I can't explain it because I'm not a science person. But it's a good question. It's part of that genetic, it's part of the genetic information that's missing. Yeah.
How old was he when he was
diagnosed? He was a year. It was actually 2 days after his first birthday. Nadia.
What does Evan enjoy doing in his free time?
I love that question. Evan loves, well, besides the music and the dancing, he loves jumping on his trampoline. He loves kind of typical 5-year-old stuff, like he loves Paw Patrol and I'm trying to think what else he's really into right now. Sometimes he likes to play with trains and trucks, but a lot of kids with Williams syndrome have kind of funny interests. They're a little more quirky than the average 5-year-old. Like he really loves, he has hyperacusis, which I didn't talk about. He has like almost like superhero hearing. So he can hear things way louder and way more intense than you guys can. Like he could probably hear what was going on in the library right now. So he sort of has a fascination with vacuums and blenders and lawnmowers and anything that makes a really loud noise. Sometimes he really likes it, and then sometimes it freaks him out.
Okay, Miss Beck has a question.
Sure.
You guys can
Huh? We have less than a minute. It just ended.
Oh. Hi, everybody.
Keep going.
Well then.